Walls surrounded the temple that Jesus knew, the second temple in Jerusalem. Inside the walls were an outer courtyard, then more walls, then an inner courtyard, and within that was the holy place, and within that, separated by a thick curtain, was the Holy of Holies. This was where God was said to dwell. There were lots of walls protecting God. There were lots of priests and guards protecting the walls. And there were lots of rules and regulations protecting the priests and the guards. God was safe and secure. Do you see these great buildings, said Jesus? Not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down. Jesus, like other reform-orientated Jews, was critical of the temple. The temple was the dominant symbol of ecclesiastical power and authority. This was where the pious and their pet god ruled. This is where the chosen, those who had wealth and influence, could appease and please God. Temple symbolized spiritual stability and protection. Yet for Jesus, it symbolized the imprisonment of God and the spiritual impoverishment of the common people. In 70 CE, the walls of the temple came down. Imperial Rome destroyed it and killed all within. The temple's demise was a cataclysmic event for Judaism and for the young Christian sect. Although the inflammatory sentiment of wishing the temple destroyed was backdated and put on Jesus' lips, it was consistent with his theology. Jesus did not wish for the destruction of Judaism, but its reform. He did not wish the priestly caste to give up their lives, but to give up their power. He did not wish the rule of God to be cast down, but to be a matter of the heart. He did not wish God to die, but to be freed. This week, Europe and the world remembered and celebrated the destruction of the Berlin Wall 20 years ago. On November the 9th, 1989, East Germans poured through the wall into the West. On that cold night, years of separation and anxiety melted into the unbelievable reality of a new freedom. It was a potent symbol of the collapse of the communist enterprise. What toppled the wall was the build-up of popular discontent in East Germany. The example of passive resistance in Poland, a series of chance errors by the East German leadership, as well as the Kremlin's refusal or inability to use force to preserve its empire. And so the wall came crumbling down. The wall, 155 kilometers long, had stood for 28 years, supposedly keeping East Germans safe from the West. To prove just how safe it was, East German guards had over the years murdered at least 136 fellow citizens. Its real function was to protect the ruling elite and protect the weakness of its pet god, called the greater good. It's convenient, though, to forget that for the poorest of citizens, the support services under communism were significantly better than the support services under a capitalist reunited Germany. Unfortunately, the virtue of individual freedom does not favor the poor. as many millions in the United States know now. Yet ultimately, the East German state died because it tried to fetter the human spirit. It had created a society where fear of difference, fear of criticism, fear of free thought reigned. Fear and the fearful were in control. They believed it was their right to access and determine every facet of human behavior in the name of the greater good. The greater good was a God that did not brook dissent. Any act of creativity, spontaneity, or even random kindness was deemed potentially subversive. Spirituality was usually suspect too, because it's so devilishly hard to control. Gods, like the Christian one, didn't answer to the party. They weren't accountable to the greater good. Even if you could control church leaders, the message of Jesus and the working of his Spirit continued to be subversive. This is why churches were at the forefront of the desire for change. And so, in time, after much protesting, suffering, and praying, the spirit of freedom triumphed over the spirit of fear. The wall came down. The wall that had been meant to provide safety, yet really symbolized control, came down. Stone by stone, it was dismantled. The God of the greater good was also dismantled, as was its priestly caste. It was replaced by the God of my good, and ignore thy neighbor. This new God is that of capitalism. There's an old gospel story about casting out demons and new ones coming in. The God of my good has significant advantages over the God of the greater good. Yet at the end of the day, both have demonic consequences. This is why the followers of Jesus need to always have a critical relationship with prevailing ideologies and political systems. Coinciding with the anniversary of the destruction of the Berlin Wall, a group of brave Palestinians tried to make a dent in another wall. In the town of Qalandar, in the occupied West Bank, a group using a lorry pulled down a 2-meter concrete block before the Israeli security forces moved in. This wall is called the Security Wall, and it divides off much of the Palestinian population from its neighbors. This wall has further alienated people from their ancestral land and provided fresh sites for Jewish Zionist settlers to make new dwellings. The Palestinians have fiercely opposed it. Unfortunately, though, the hapless protesters won't be successful in removing this wall in a hurry. Rather than increase security, walls are an indication that other methods have failed. Walls do not create solutions. Indeed, all they create is resentment. The ferocity of that resentment will come wave upon wave to break upon those walls. And break they will in time. It's only the hard and painful work of reconciliation, peace building, and forgiveness finding that can create solutions.